What's up, lovely soul? This is Men Have Feelings Too. Who knew? And my guest today is Ricky Goodall. He is ex-MMA fighter, and now he's a coach, an initiated shaman, and an author. And also, most importantly, an aspiring channel of unconditional love. That is beautiful. Thank you so much for being here, Ricky.
Thanks for having me, Lauren. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So you were just heavy in the MMA fighting, and then what happened?
Yeah, so I started competing in 2006. I was homeless and jobless, and I watched the movie The Secret. And within a year, became an MMA fighter and competed and won my first fight by 1 point. I was overweight. I was barely in shape enough to compete. And I realized that I might be able to do something with it. So I continued competing and went through 21 MMA fights. But in my 16th fight, I got badly knocked out. I was knocked out cold for 2 minutes straight. Woke up, did an interview with the post-fight announcer, then another interview outside of the cage, and was wheeled out into an ambulance, went to the hospital. And I barely remember any of it. I actually don't remember anything before the ambulance.
Wow.
So it was like a 30 minutes of my life I never got back. And like I literally like stood up and did an interview and I don't remember any of it. So it's like, who was operating the avatar during that time? And I was on autopilot or something. Yeah, so it kind of scared me. I just realized that I could put all of this work into a sport and I could not only lose, but lose my consciousness and maybe lose my life. So I started to feel kind of scared to compete after that. And I fought 5 more times. I lost 4 of those 5 fights. It was like a vicious losing streak. But like before I went in the cage, I was like, I don't want to be in here anymore. I don't want to do this. And so my heart wasn't in it. My interest wasn't in it. I didn't want to hurt people anymore. I didn't want to get hurt anymore. And so that was the beginning of the end.
Did you know what you wanted to do at that point?
You know, what happened was I lost that fight, got really insecure, went through an identity crisis. I was dating a fitness model at the time. Our whole life was intertwined into like mixed martial arts and fitness competitions. And I started getting really insecure and controlling and fearful. And she broke up with me and it was devastating. And it was this like, now I know it was triggering a childhood trauma that wasn't healed, but I didn't know it at the time. And I went through multiple breakups and they were always so devastating. So I went back to the movie The Secret to try to attract my ex-girlfriend back. And that's how it all started. And so I started reading the people about Bob Proctor and Dr. John DeMartini and learning about trauma healing, learning about male-female psychology, learning about why was I so attached, why I wasn't able to just let go and love myself and feel whole and complete by myself. Why did I need a relationship to make me feel complete? And so that was in 2012 when I started that journey. Now it's 2022. So I went through psychology and hundreds of shamanic ceremonies and all sorts of stuff to heal. And then the healing became like a passion and a purpose and a way to serve others and an understanding of the universe I never expected.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
So plant medicines. Yeah. Would you say that has been one of the most profound aspects of your healing journey?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, a combination of like shamanism and magic and plant medicines. Like plant medicines are powerful. And it's sort of like driving a Lamborghini if you don't know how to drive a car. It's like, you're not really going to be able to feel the power of that vehicle without proper instruction and proper training. And so in 2015, I was initiated into high magic. And and I also experienced my first shamanic ceremony at that time. So I'd done plant medicines before working with a shaman or a ceremonial magician. And it was a profound experience. And with a trained guide, it became supernatural, superhuman.
Wow. I would love to experience that.
Yeah. I mean, it was some experiences were excruciating. Terrifying, like confusing, lack of safety, hellish kind of realities. But I mean, that's part of healing sometimes.
Oh yeah. You gotta be open to be annihilated again and again and again, you know?
Yeah, and so much gratitude. Oh, I'm so glad to be alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would you say is, do you have a favorite plant medicine, or do all of them kind of do different things?
Well, the one that my ego likes most is cannabis, but that doesn't work well with my life. So I've used cannabis once in the last like 8 months. Before
Yeah.
that, throughout my healing process, I was using it almost every day throughout my deep trauma healing process, almost every day. And it was really powerful because I would combine it with shamanic and ceremonial high magic. So it'd be very deep for unpacking and processing and reprogramming beliefs and dealing with unprocessed pain and things like that. But then it just got to a point where it was almost toxic in my life. So I had to let it go to get
Kind of
very
like a
productive.
crutch.
Yeah, I just let go of all plant medicines for about 7 months, 6 to 7 months. But I would say my favorite, most practical one would be psilocybin mushrooms. I think
Mm-hmm.
like psilocybin can be like dental surgery, whereas ayahuasca is like getting a liver removed. You know? It's like one you can do in one day, and you don't need a lot of you don't need a lot of time to process or integrate, or at least you don't need as much time. Whereas like ayahuasca or Bufo was probably the most devastating experience that I had in terms of plant medicines. It rocked me for about 2 months.
Wow. Would you
I
be
was
open to talking about that experience?
Yeah, I mean, it was in September of 2021. The intention was for my nervous system to no longer need cannabis to relax. That was why I went into the experience. And so I talked to the owners of this sanctuary here. I'm in Mexico, and it was the owner of this sanctuary in Mexico. Told them about my plant medicine journeys. Told them about my MMA experiences. And so they're like, we'll hook you up. And I think they gave me a couple of really big doses, because it was 2 days in a row. And in the first one, I just became pure unconditional love, and God, I became God. And it was so profound that it was like I was saying, I am bliss, I am pleasure, I am love. But then it became like so much unconditional love that my nervous system at the time, because I was going through this like fear of like, am I a cannabis addict? Well, I'm not doing the things I want in my life. So my nervous system wasn't really ready to receive that level of unconditional love. And
Oh, wow.
my nervous system perceived it as a terrifying threat. So I went from like heaven to like hell in that experience. And it
Whoa.
was so scary. I didn't think I was ever coming back. Thought I was trapped forever.
Oh my
And
gosh.
then all of a sudden, this world materialized in front of me, and the owners were there, and they're like, "You're okay, you're back." And I was standing up. I don't even know how I got to be standing up. And so then the next day, I went through another ceremony, another Bufo ceremony, and there were 6 people in the room. And this time, I didn't like slip away. Bufo, I don't know if you've
I
experienced
haven't done
it.
it yet. No,
Yeah.
I'm
It's
interested
it's
though.
it's it's like a more intense DMT experience, like the DMT that you smoke.
Oh,
And
whoa.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so the first one, I was completely gone. I had no awareness that I was even a human being anymore. But in the second one, I could still see the room that I was in, which is for me, very rare when it comes to DMT. Usually I'm gone in another world. I can't see anything around me, but this time I could. And I could see all of the people. And at first I was like, I thought I went to heaven. I thought I was like in a higher dimension, which I think we are. But I mean, I think that I was able to perceive that higher dimension. And I was like, wow, I'm here, I'm home. And I was like, I'm here. And all these people were there. And in that moment, they were like angels that were just helping me get home, basically. And I was like, I was so grateful. But then again, my nervous system couldn't handle all of the love. So it started getting really dark and really scary. And I thought that I was in hell again. I was terrified. And then finally I came out of it, and I was just so grateful for being alive and having my life and my family and all of the challenges I faced. I'm just so grateful for my life. So Bufo, I mean, when they get the Bufo medicine, they have to scare the frog for the frog to
Okay.
excrete the medicine. So I wonder if there's kind of like a karmic thing there where,
Hmm.
a lot of people report being terrified from Bufo, like really scared,
I could
which is
see
why I
that because that's the energy you're kind of,
think so. Yeah.
consuming. Yeah.
So that was my experience, at least. Bufo is terrifying. I mean, I had some terrifying ayahuasca ceremonies, but like the last 8 ayahuasca ceremonies I did were actually all beautiful. But the first 5 were like, 2 of them were devastatingly intense. But Bufo is like, I'll get this on camera. I don't think I will ever do Bufo again. In fact, I will say that I will never do it again. I don't need to. I think when you get the message that I got, you don't ever need to touch it ever again.
Yeah. It sounds like it was pretty intense.
Yeah. I mean,
Whoa.
basically, the message I got from it is that it was showing me the extremes of duality. If I chase a path of love and, non-aggression and moderation and respect, and then I'm going to go towards that unconditional love place. But if I chase a path of lust, of like sense gratification and bodily impulses, and having no real discipline, and just like, just a lust-based life,
Mhm.
ego-based life, then I'm going to go toward that darker darker realm of reality. I think we all eventually go to the love, but I might have to go through some challenges before I get there. And that was basically the message I got.
Okay. That's really awesome. So what got you interested in high magic?
You know, I didn't even know it existed. I was running a wellness center, and the girlfriend I had after the girlfriend that the fitness model I was dating, I started dating this other girl, and we were having a challenging relationship as well. After my MMA fight, I got started using cocaine and ecstasy more than I did in my MMA career, which was lots at that time. So I started using even more because I didn't have a fight career anymore. I didn't have any reason to be not party. So I just started partying a lot. I would have never addicted or anything. I could stop anytime I wanted to, but I just really liked it at that time. And so this girlfriend and I were using cocaine a lot together, and the relationship was just falling apart. And I was living two lives. I was running this wellness center on the surface, somebody like running a wellness center, but then I was partying until 5 a.m.
Wow.
On weekends. So her and I broke up. And then this guy just came to my wellness center one day and wanted to know if he could volunteer in exchange for me helping him out with this business. He's a graphic designer. And he did amazing psychedelic art, graphic design art. And after like a week or two, he's like, "Hey, have you ever experienced magic before?" And I was like, what do you mean? Like witchcraft, like black magic, like curses and hexes? Like, what are you talking about? He's like, "Oh, that's one kind of magic. That's not really what I practice." And so I learned that there are really three types of magic. There's like low magic or black magic, which is like the magic of hurting other people. And there's like gray magic, which is like attraction and manifestation magic. And then there's like high magic, which is all about spiritual purification and aligning with the will of the divine. So I don't have to manifest the things I want. I just have to clean myself, and the things I want will come to me. There's no effort. It's basically divine flow. And so he said, in order to show me, in order to put me through a ceremony, he had to initiate me first. So there was an initiation process, except I wasn't sworn to any secrecy. So he initiated me, and we went through this psilocybin high magic ceremony. It's very, very intricate. There are an altar with very specific tools. The room was set up in a very specific way. There were specific candles, specific offerings, specific incense. Everything was intentional. And there were many moving parts to this ceremony. And it was so profound. He basically, what I understand now is he like channeled the Holy Spirit, or like the divine feminine, and it could be considered a masculine too, but really like the combination of that masculine and feminine energy. He like channeled that and like projected it onto me in the ceremony. And so I experienced this level of love that I just didn't know was possible. And so as I'm feeling this profound love, all of this shit inside of me that makes me feel like I'm not worthy of love started coming to the surface in images. Right. So it's like sifting for gold. As my frequency was rising, the stuff that didn't resonate was starting to come to the surface. And so I had all these realizations about my relationships, and how basically when I was a child, when I was a teenager, when I was like 7, 8 years old, I was taken to foster care out of my mother's custody after my parents broke up. And so I had an abandonment issue, and my brother got to stay home with my mother. So my little brother got to stay home. I got taken to foster care, and my mom started dating somebody new after her and my dad broke up. So there are all of these ties around my relationship to women and not feeling worthy of women's love. So I would basically push my girlfriends away in the beginning, continue to sleep with other people, lie to them about it, get into the relationship, eventually feel guilty, and then get really insecure because I felt so guilty from the beginning of the relationship and not being honest. I literally did that 5 times.
Wow.
5 different girlfriends. It was like an unconscious pattern. I didn't even know I was doing it until this ceremony.
It's amazing that you saw it though.
Crystal clear. It was just like, here's all your suffering. The pattern was healed. My relationship with the women is completely transformed. And I went through like more than a dozen ceremonies with this guy like this. And the first one is profound, but then it gets deeper and deeper and deeper, more profound, more profound. And then about a year later or 6 months later, I went to Peru for my first ayahuasca ceremonies.
Whoa, that sounds incredible. To be able to have a realization like that, just to instantly alchemize all of that patterning.
Yeah. And I mean, the really profound thing was that I started to learn how my unhealed pain was running my life, and how my unhealed pain, my unexpressed emotions were operating my avatar and causing me to behave in ways that were completely against my will even. And I didn't want, it's like, for example, girlfriend breaks up with me. I know logically the first thing to do is walk away, let her give her space, or just walk away completely. But I couldn't. I would email, I would call, I would beg her to get back together with me. I'd please, 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 even though logically I didn't even want to be in the relationship anymore. Right? I knew that it was over. I don't want to be with that person. I'm not happy. I'm not enjoying this. I want something new. I want something fresh, but I couldn't. So I started to learn that what the shamans call like intrusions, and Christians call like demons, and in Hebrew Kabbalah they call it like the klipa. It's like these intrusions of energy that actually run our nervous system and cause us to behave in ways that we're unconscious to. And so magic, I learned, is really
And
the
do you think
process
those are caused by our traumas or invited in by our traumas?
I think that they are trauma, basically. I think
Yeah,
that
that's what I
I
think
mean,
too.
from a pseudo-scientific perspective, I think that they're like pockets of, they're intelligent pain entities.
Yeah.
They're not here to hurt us, I don't think. Like, for example, a child gets bit by a dog, and it creates a demon or a program or a virus. I call it viruses, really, to keep it, and the virus is meant to keep the child safe from dogs now.
But now
So the child's kind of mean to dogs, maybe, but then they grow up and they become an adult, and now they're abusive to dogs for no reason. Because that virus was never healed, the child, now an adult, still has resentment and anger and fear toward dogs. And so they're actually mean, abusive, or indifferent, or whatever toward dogs. And so what was once a very empowering program for survival has now become a disempowering program, like a virus or an outdated operating system.
Yeah, I work with a lot of that in my hypnotherapy practice.
Yeah.
And I think also once you kind of like obliterate those pockets of traumas or those trauma entities, there's so much under there. There's like a wellspring of energy that can become available to us because there's a lot of energy to contain that, I guess, or something.
Yeah. I think I love how you put that. It's almost as if I kind of imagine that the depth of our pain is a reflection of the height of our potential or our power.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So it's like all of the effort, like if you think about driving a car with a parking brake on, it takes a lot of effort to hit your top speed. And every trauma that's unhealed or unprocessed is like a parking brake. And so we're running, we're trying to hit our top speed. Yeah. So we're trying to hit our top speed, and we are sometimes, but it takes so much effort. The engine is overwhelmed. But then when right. And then you go through a hypnotherapy session and somebody releases the trauma or the pain or the beliefs or all of the above. And then all of a sudden it takes way less effort to hit the same speed. So maybe they don't go any faster in life. Maybe they don't achieve any more, but they just do it with ease, and they do it with presence, and they do it with an experience of happiness for no reason, just because they're living in the present moment.
And I've also noticed that the alchemization of those traumas sometimes opens gifts up in people that they never knew they had.
Yeah, superpowers.
Right? Yeah, man. It's like the deeper the depths, the higher the heights.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think to a degree, like our traumas are. This is the thing that I've realized lately that I want to be careful with, or I'm going to be careful with. Trauma creates suffering, and then suffering creates power, and we can generate power just through happiness and enjoyment too. Yes. It doesn't have to be from trauma. I think for a long time, especially after my fighting career, I thought I needed to suffer. when I was healing, I thought that healing meant suffering, and now I'm starting to learn that it actually doesn't. If I'm in a safe space with a good support system and people who I trust and who I care about, healing doesn't have to be suffering anymore.
Yeah.
So I think for a long time I was under the illusion that I had to suffer to get that power. And so the trick with that is, well, then I manifest more traumas to be more powerful. So it's going to be very careful. It's the healer's curse. Like I talked to a man last night who claimed to be a rabbi. I don't know if he actually is, but he said he had a lot more bitterness than I expected from a well-seasoned rabbi. That's why I say I don't know if he actually was, but he said healers don't care if you heal because then they don't make money. And that's a generalization. And I think to a degree, if we're not careful, it could be true. It's like, why am I healing people? Well, I do healing work because I think that we're going to reach like a heavenly state in our world some point in our future.
I'm ready for it.
Yeah. So my healing work is with that intention. if we get to a point where I no longer get to heal people because there's no one left to heal,
You won't need to worry
awesome.
about the
Yeah,
money.
no, it won't be an issue. It'll be a gift-based
Yeah.
economy. We'll live in a whole different world. Yeah. So when he said it, I was a little triggered at first because I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like I don't resonate with that, but I can see how it's true for some people. I could
Mm-hmm.
see how it might be true for some people that aren't, when I wasn't really all that healed and I was doing healing work with others, I still had lots to offer to the people that weren't at my place yet, but I was still doing it sometimes for selfish reasons. So it really needs to be about
Yeah,
service.
I've been there from like an egoic place, like
Yeah,
doing healing work. It's
yeah.
hard not to, like when you're doing like energy work and it's really helping people and they're having these profound experiences, it's really hard to keep that ego in check, especially at first.
It's a practice, yeah, and it's ongoing.
Yes.
And I think that, I mean, even in I'm not Christian, but even in the Bible, when Jesus is on the cross and he's like, why have you forsaken me? It's like, that was his ego, right? Like when he says, Father, why have you forsaken me? It's like, in that moment, he lost his faith. And so I think that, and when he flips over tables and he whips the Pharisees and all these different things that he does in the Bible that we don't really hear about a lot, those to me are all moments of like ego, right? They're all moments of like losing control a little bit. And we hear about it in all sorts of different spiritual texts. So I think that the idea is like, it's just humility. Like if we think we're there, we're definitely not there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like when we're there, if there is a there to get to, it won't be us
I don't
who's
know.
like, oh my God, I'm
Yeah.
there. I mean, I think like some spiritual traditions claim that, like Kabbalah and some of these other traditions claim that there is a place of purity, but it's so different than this world that it's unmistakable. And it won't be a matter of, am I there? It'll just be, I am there. It will
Mm-hmm.
be unmistakable. So I don't think I'm there yet. I mean, I'm in a really great place, but I'm not there yet. And maybe I am there and I just haven't figured it out yet. And that's okay too. But my ego likes to think I'm there more than I probably am there.
Yeah. And I don't think the ego is something that we can or should completely kill.
No, it's like having a wild horse in your living room. It's like, if you have a wild horse, you can kill it, then you don't have a horse anymore. Or
Yeah.
you can let it run wild and destroy your home, or you can tame it. And if you tame it, now you have a friend, now you have a horse, you have something that's functional. And I think the ego works the same way. It's like, if we can tame it and use it to our advantage and use it like a servant or like a friend, it can be a friend that we don't fully trust, but like, we trust enough to leave him with money and stuff, but we don't trust him with more than he can handle because it's just irresponsible.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So with the Bible, it's interesting that you bring up the Bible. I'm not Christian either, even though I do feel a connection to Yeshua and Mary Magdalene. But I think like there's a lot about the demonization of the feminine in the Bible. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that rabbit hole is so deep. And have you ever read the Unknown Life of Jesus Christ by Nicholas Notovich? You ever heard of that book?
No, I'm going to though.
Yeah. I think you'll really like it based on what you just said. So basically, this researcher, he's a Russian explorer back in like the 1800s. I think it's the 1800s, and he's exploring the Himalayan and Tibetan mountains. Or they're probably the same. He's exploring India and Tibet. The Himalayan mountains are in. I think they span both of those areas. And I'm an expert in geography, in case you didn't notice. But yeah, just kidding. He's riding horseback, and again, this is like in the 1800s. He's got like a guide with him, and he falls off his horse and breaks his leg, and so he gets taken into a Tibetan monastery. I think it's a Tibetan monastery with a lama, and these lamas basically show him these lost scrolls of Jesus, who they say is actually named Isa, ISSA.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, and then they let him read these scrolls. And so he gets this guide to copy as much of these scrolls as he can. And in some of these scrolls, he talks about how the mother is the womb of the universe, and she's the womb in which all things are created. And it's really profound. It brings the feminine into it, but it was obviously not included in the Gospels. And then there's the Gospel of Mary Magdalene too, which I thought was really profound.
I'm reading the Magdalene manuscripts right now.
Okay, how's that?
It's really interesting. I like in the beginning is just all her channeled. So, and then the other chapters, which I'm getting into, are the like Isis's sex magic.
Yeah.
So just kind of like alchemy and then sex magic. So it is really interesting. And I've noticed some of the similar practices that the Tao uses, like, rising of the Kundalini energy, although they're not really calling it that, and ovarian breathing. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
powerful stuff.
there's some really cool, powerful techniques in there that I like.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know what we don't know. And I think that
There's so much.
It's endless. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that the trick is really to follow the internal guidance. And with
Oh yeah.
like the Yeshua and Jesus work, it's like I had some profound ceremonies that led me on a path to discover this secret philosophy about Jesus's name that basically says that Jesus's name comes from these 5 Hebrew letters that represent the 5 dimensions of the human consciousness, which are like mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, and our consciousness. And that Jesus or Yeshua is actually our higher self and the child of God, and that we are growing into that child of God, and that child of God eventually becomes God, which is like the Kabbalistic kind of tree of life diagram teaches us. So whether that's true or not, it's like it's tricky with Christianity, because it's like when we look at the Abrahamic religions, they teach a lot about not worshiping idols. And so technically a Christian is kind of worshiping an idol, and that's not my opinion. It's just what I've learned. However, a Kabbalistic student named Billy Phillips said he learned from Rav Berg, who's like one of the most important authorities, or was, he passed away, in Kabbalah. He said that righteous Christians, in other words, Christians who are righteous people who live in accordance with God's law, who worship Jesus as the Son of God, might be guilty of ignorance, but they're not guilty of idolatry, because they think that they're doing the right thing and they're living a righteous life. When they talk about like all of this kind of magic that's paganistic magic, it's always dark. It's not aligned with like the law of love or the law of non-aggression. It's always darker stuff.
Oh yeah.
So,
I had a roommate who introduced me to magic through that avenue. So, I mean, I learned it, and then I would hear her like making fun of me for like doing work that was like more in the light.
Yeah.
But that is not something, I mean, it's something that I would like to be aware of and know about, but not something I would want to practice for sure.
Well, I think the danger is that, and I have to admit my ignorance, because I don't know that much about that. I haven't explored that side of magic deeply. But from my understanding, it's like there's this, I read this passage from a Tibetan Buddhist tantric philosophy. And what it basically said was, those who walk the right-hand path and the middle path are basically moving toward love. But those who walk the left-hand path, which is the path of the self, rather than the path of service, are going down an ever descending stairwell to horrifying states of consciousness. So it's like when I hear that, it's like I've been to some places in plant medicine ceremonies that felt horrifying, and I'm not risking that.
I've seen it manifest in her in some ways, like when we would do certain ceremonies, just the energy that would take over her, and then the things that started to happen in her life. Yeah, no.
I think what we put out comes back to us, and so
for sure.
Yeah, and I think with gray magic, it's a little more like the secret would be considered like a form of gray magic, I believe, law of attraction. As gray and high, like the challenge with gray is there's still some black to create the color gray. So it's a really fine line of what's aligned and what's not. Whereas with high magic, it's like, and I'm not saying that I only practice high magic. I think sometimes my magic is unintentionally some gray magic too, just intending, just wanting something and thinking about it is kind of gray magic, right?
It is, yeah.
Visualization is gray magic. It's really the intention behind it, I think.
The intention is everything.
Yeah. So I think the secret that I've learned of all of this stuff would be that it has to be service-based. It has to be for the service of humanity. We can still have desires, and if we can turn those desires into forms of service, Or if I want $1,000, how can I create $10,000 worth of value for somebody and charge $1,000 for it? So it's
Yeah.
really, if I can really serve more than I receive, then I think that I'm safe. And I
And
think
you
that
can receive so much through serving. I learned that in a plant medicine ceremony.
totally, I think it's you plant a seed before you reap the potatoes or
Yeah.
the tomatoes. So
And
you
it's
have to
hard to
plant
do
the seed.
in this capitalistic society. It really is, because I mean, you have to survive.
Yeah, I think that the system was created by the same thing that created us. So I think that the system is a manifestation of creator, God, universe, just like everything is. So it's like I think that the secret is figuring out the laws behind it. And when we figure out the laws behind it, then we're invincible to a degree to the system. We're not dependent on
Yeah.
the system anymore, you know. So it's like, what is the system? The system is a reflection of my consciousness. So if I want the system to change, then I have to change my consciousness.
I
And
love
so,
that.
yeah, so
I have to
Robert
read
Kiyosaki.
some of the books you're reading, man.
Thanks. I mean, I'm fortunate to have some great people that I look up to and who have really helped me. Robert Kiyosaki was an author. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He wrote the
Yeah, I
book,
have.
yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad. He said wealthy people get rich during an economic recession and poor people get poor. That's not because rich people are taking advantage of poor people. Not to say that that doesn't happen. What happens is the mindset of the wealthy see opportunity in everything. The mindset of the poor, and I'm poor and I'm working my way to wealth, see struggle and suffering in everything. When I was homeless, and I've been homeless multiple times in my life, it
Yeah,
was
me too.
always I was always in victim consciousness.
Oh man, yeah.
Always in victim consciousness. And
I
stealing.
remember back to that, and I have so much love for her, but wow.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's like the only thing to blame, if there's anything to blame, is my own consciousness. And I watched this video earlier of this rabbi. I try to study it all, right? Just anything that's based in the light, I'll study it, learn it, not really stay attached to anything. But he said, we don't actually need anything. We don't need food. We don't need water. We don't need breath. We don't need anything. It's actually God that needs us. And those needs are actually God's needs through us. So in the first of the Torah or the Bible, it says, God created the heavens and the earth. He said, just by that statement, we know that God needs us. Why would God create us unless God needed us? Because without us, without creation, there's nothing. God is just existence.
That reminds me of what you said about one of your plant medicine experiences.
Yeah, and it was terrifying. And now I'm starting to learn what the experience was, and essentially the experience is like we have to have a tremendous amount of gratitude and love for God or creator or universe, whatever you want to call it. I use the word God because that's what my consciousness recognizes, my subconscious mind, but it could be Brahma, it could be anything. I have to have immense gratitude and forgiveness and unconditional love for God and my experience of reality, because I don't have to be, I don't have to be here. It's not like I don't have to be here. It could just like not exist. You know, so it's like it took a long time to get out of that victim mindset and to not feel like, oh my God, life's happening to me, and all these
instead of for you. Even the challenges, like it's so amazing to be able to like hold yourself in the midst of just like judgment and challenges and just like, you know what, this is not my favorite place to be right now, but I know it's happening for me and I'll be able to see that at some point. Yeah.
Sometimes we have to tear down the old house to build a new one.
Oh yeah.
sometimes we have to cut the stomach open to remove the tumor. So healing can be painful, and challenges, like if I notice that for me, some of the most challenging situations are when I'm resisting my growth. Back in 2021, when I come to the point where I no longer wanted to be using cannabis in my life, but I was still using it, in a matter of like 1.5 months, I crashed a motorcycle. I was fine, but I burnt my leg pretty bad, high on weed in Costa Rica, and almost drowned in the ocean. I actually like had a legit near-death experience. Whoa. I had a little bit of edibles that day, and went in the Costa Rican, I was in Playa Guiones, Nosara area, and it's really strong riptides, some of the strongest in the world. I didn't even know what a riptide was, and I wasn't a strong swimmer.
Where are
So
you
I was
originally from?
Canada,
Okay.
Nova Scotia, so pretty much no riptides where I'm from. So I'm playing in the water and I get caught in a riptide. And my girlfriend at the time was there with me, and I was in over my head, and I tried to fight the current, tried to fight the riptide, which you can't do. Not even an Olympic swimmer apparently can fight a riptide. You have to go against, like away from it, not into it. So I was swimming as hard as I could, and I burnt myself out. I couldn't swim anymore. So then I was getting pulled further and further out. I can't even move my arms enough to tread water barely. And the waves are crashing, 10-foot waves crashing over my head. So I finally got to the point where I couldn't get out of the water. So I had to yell for her to go get help. We were yelling, but no one could hear us. The beach wasn't very busy that day. So she had to swim into the shore while I'm basically like drowning. And everything started to go white. I was losing consciousness, and I'm praying in the water. I'm like, God, what are you doing to me? Why are you doing this to me? And the message was clear as we're talking right now. And I was starting to lose oxygen. So it was like a DMT trip almost. And the voice was, are you ready to start living your purpose? Are you ready to stop hiding? Are you ready to shine? Because cannabis was my way of medicating myself so that I didn't have to shine.
Yes.
Because I was scared to share some of this truth with the world because of all the backlash I might get. Like, who am I? My parents were never married. I never grew up religious. Who am I to share any of this stuff with the world? And so cannabis was my way of numbing that pain and dissatisfaction. So the voice said, are you ready to start living your purpose? And I started to fade away. And then the next thing I knew, somebody was there yelling in my ear, telling me to grab their surfboard. They pulled me into the shore. I couldn't walk, I couldn't get up, couldn't walk. Got rushed to the hospital, put on oxygen and IV. Was there for like a few hours, getting my life back. And so sometimes we have to listen to the signs. If we don't listen, it's like first they're a pebble, then a rock, then a brick, then it's a boulder. And we don't always survive the boulder.
That's
so it's
so
like
true.
My suffering is usually a manifestation of not listening to the messages that are coming.
Isn't it always? Because sometimes those messages are like the thing that you think you don't want, right? But you're like, oh, but I want this. I want it to stay this way or be this way. And the messages are not in alignment with that, but you don't know what's ahead if you listen to those messages.
Yeah, exactly.
So you are a coach and an initiated shaman. I would love to hear some about that.
Yeah. So when that guy initiated me into magic, that was October of 2015. And then I closed my wellness center right after that. I realized I was miserable. I didn't want to do that. I want to work from a computer, which is what I'm doing right now.
Did you do healing work at the wellness center?
I was offering stuff. Yeah, I was offering nutrition coaching and things like this. But I had to work like 60 hours a week at a desk.
Yeah.
That's not my jam. Like, I need to be free. So I closed my wellness center. I started looking up a business coach who could help me figure out my business. And I found this coach online. I emailed him, begged him to coach me, never heard back from him. Then I went to Peru in May of 2016 for my first ayahuasca ceremonies. And in my first ceremony, nothing happened, pretty much nothing. I just saw the words, nurture the roots. And that was it. So I thought I got ripped off. So the next morning we're doing like a reflection with the shamans. And they asked me how my experience was. And I was pissed. I was like, I'd been through 50 DMT experiences, and I came here to experience something profound, and this wasn't it. And so the organizer, who's now a really good friend of mine, and he's also a shaman, I didn't know at the time, he translates for the shaman. The shaman didn't speak any English, and the shaman speaks back to him, and they translate to me. And he says, yes, the shaman says that Mother Ayahuasca doesn't always give you what you want. She gives you what you need. She was preparing you for tonight's ceremony. It was very important that you use respectful words when you speak about Mother Ayahuasca, because she's always listening. And I was like, whatever. So I went to my room and I wrote a letter to Mother Ayahuasca, and it was a pretty strict, I came here to experience something spectacular. So that night I drank ayahuasca, and within minutes I was gone. And all these little beings were around me, and they were like, you need to bow down and surrender right now. And ask for forgiveness, because we're not going to take you any further unless you do. And this is going to get really dark for you if you don't. So I'm on my hands and knees, like, oh my God, I surrender. And then it was like God starts whispering in my ear and saying, look at you, look at what you are. And I look down at my body, and I just become like all of the basic elements of nature, like right down to like rock and clay. And then I morph into soil, and then I become vegetation. amphibious creatures, and then primates, and then human, and I continue to evolve in like angelic beings. And God's saying, do you see, like, this is what you are. You're not this human being. This is just a tiny step on the path. This is just one speck of dust compared to what you are. And then all these angels are around me, and they have their hands on me, and they're saying, you have to learn to heal yourself before you can walk amongst the angels. And then they tell me that I'm going to be initiated. The shamans are going to tell me that I'm a shaman. All this stuff happened. I'm throwing up the last 2 hours on the toilet with diarrhea. I was throwing up, crying at the same time, just like, oh my God, this is so intense, like so profound. And lasted for the entire 6 hours. I was throwing up nonstop.
Damn.
And then the next day we wake up, I tell them about my experience. I could barely get out of bed. I didn't do my third ceremony, and they didn't tell me I was a shaman. So I was like, what the hell? Like, what happened here? And so I decided to go back 5 months later. This time I brought some clients with me. And in the first ceremony, not much happened again. But in the second ceremony, I asked them if they would give me enough ayahuasca so I never have to drink ayahuasca ever again. And so at this point, I know them. They're my friends, the shamans. I've worked with them. I brought a bunch of clients to their retreat center, and they're not for profit. They donate all their money to orphanages and stuff, and they volunteer at the orphanages. So we've got a relationship with them now. And they're like, yeah, sure, we'll give you enough ayahuasca so you never have to do ayahuasca ever again. And so most people got about this much, and I got about a cup, like full of the top. It was crazy. It was so much ayahuasca. And so that night I drink the ayahuasca, and the first thing that happens, I think I told you the story, I disappeared. I was no longer Ricky Goodall. I had no memory. I had no recollection of being in Peru. I was in complete nothingness, complete darkness, and I was terrified. Oh my God, what is this? What is this? Nothing, no answer, just infinite nothingness. It felt like I was there forever. Oh my God, what is this? Where am I? What is this? Finally, a voice says, what's wrong? And it's Mother Ayahuasca. She says, what's wrong? I said, what is this? Where am I? She's laughing now. She's like, what's wrong? I thought you wanted to know what it feels like to be God. She said, I thought you wanted to know what it feels like to be the creator. So don't you recognize at this level of your consciousness, you're all there is. There's nothing else for you to experience here. There's nothing else for you to be in relationship with. Because don't you realize you created this life as Ricky Goodall to give yourself a vacation away from being all there is, all there ever was, and all there ever will be. So the ancient people now never bow down out of fear of their creator. They bow down out of compassion. Thank you for this gift of life. Thank you for creating life so that I can experience life, because I'm nothing otherwise. And so obviously this is profound. I'm throwing up the whole time. Then she shows me the 6-pointed star, the Star of David, or the Seal of Solomon, the hexagram, tetragrammaton. She says, you have to study this symbol, because if you study this symbol, you're going to understand the secrets of the universe. You're going to understand yourself. You're going to understand how to contribute to changing the world. And so much more. So many other things happened. So I came home, started studying Kabbalah, alchemy, all these different things. Still not told I was a shaman. Still no one told me. I wanted it so bad. And so finally in April of 2018, I started having these traumas come to the surface that I didn't remember, all the way back in childhood. Sexual abuse from a family member, a distant family member, all these different things I didn't know happened. And I went from being like a coach and an entrepreneur to like socially isolating, locked in my room, couldn't leave my house, couldn't make money, living in poverty, like under the poverty line. And like
just from the resurfacing of these traumas.
Yeah. And doing ceremonies almost every day to heal myself. And I wasn't getting as deeply as I wanted to. So I knew I needed to go back to Peru. So August of 2018, I went back to Peru again. Now, in between 2016 and 2018, I started getting trained by these coaches from California. They call it coaching, but really, and it's high level. Like the guy that I was trained under, he's almost an 8-figure coach. But what they do is they, through faith and through training, they connect to our higher self, mine and yours, the one higher self. And they ask you stimulating questions that are completely channeled, that guide you to figure out exactly what's holding you back in your life, what's holding you back from shining to your deepest level that you can, to the biggest level that you can. And they, in the first conversation I had with one of these coaches, my income tripled.
I would love to have one of those sessions.
Yeah. So after my first conversation, I made my first $4,500 client. Like, I mean, within 10 days, my first conversation, because they just pluck out all of these subconscious blocks.
And that's all it is.
Yeah. So I got trained under these coaches for about 3 years in the end, apprenticed and did sessions every week for 9 months, and then continued to work with them from that point forward. And then, so I went back to Peru in August of 2018 and had my first ayahuasca ceremony, and was scared after all the things that happened before. And Mother Ayahuasca just said, what are you here for? I already told you what your purpose is. I already showed you what you're meant to do. You just need to surrender into what you are. And so it was very light. I was like laughing as other people were throwing up. It was like, I couldn't help it. I'm just like, I was there before. Now I'm here. I'm not even throwing up. Like it was like taking like a light mushroom dose almost.
Wow.
So the next morning I tell, and then I see that 6-pointed star again. She reminds me of that symbol. So the next morning I tell the shaman of my experiences, tell him about the 6-pointed star, what Mother Ayahuasca said. And he says, yes, Mother Ayahuasca told me to tell you that you're a shaman, you're a doctor, you're a healer, you're meant to do this work with others. So he said, tonight I'm going to sing a special Icaro, an arcana, he called it, to initiate you into the medicine. He said, you'll be able to bring Mother Ayahuasca with you in your coaching, in your energy healing. Even when she's not there, she'll come through your words. So wow. she's gonna be with you she's inside of you now, she's gonna be with you everywhere. And so that night he comes around to me and he starts singing this Icaro. It's different than all the others. And he's lit up in flames, and I'm lit up in flames too. So it's like the fire of initiation. And so the next thing I know, the vision stopped, the medicine's not working anymore. I'm not getting anything out of it. Mother Ayahuasca gives me a message to give to another guy that's in the ceremony. This guy was laying beside me. He's also my roommate at the retreat center. And he thought he was dying. So they took him to his room, which was my room as well. And he's in there and he thinks he's dying. So the shaman's in there with him, the priest is in there with him, the psychologist and the doctor are in there with him. And he doesn't know what's happening. He thinks he's dying. Mother Ayahuasca says, go give him a message. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just some white guy from Canada. I'm not going to go give this guy a message. Indigenous shamans have been doing this for 50 generations. Like, what am I going to do?
Oh, yeah.
So the doctor comes over to me and she says, Ricky, how are you doing? Are you having visions? And I said, no, not really. It's kind of worn off, but how's Joe doing? She said, oh, he's having a really hard time. And I said, Mother Ayahuasca gave me a message for him. She said, you're connected. You have to go give him a message. So I didn't give him the message. I still stayed there longer, sitting there, having this internal battle. Finally, the organizer comes over. Her name's Fernanda, and she says, how are you doing? Are you having visions? And I say, no. How's Joe? She says, he's really struggling. I say, Mother Ayahuasca gave me a message to give to him. And she's in an apprenticeship to become a shaman as well. She says, Ricky, you're a master. You're a doctor. You have to answer the call. Please go give Joe the message. All right. So I get up. I walk in the room. Joe's under the covers. He's so scared. And I say, Joe, Mother Ayahuasca gave me a message for you. Can I give it to you? He says, sure. I said, a great healer must be greatly healed. And as I'm walking back to the ceremony, I realized that the message wasn't really for him. It was an opportunity for me to answer the call. If I'm a great healer, then when the call comes, I have to answer it. Mm-hmm. And a great healer must be greatly healed. If someone aspires to be a great healer, there's going to be great healing that's going to be necessary.
Oh, yeah.
So it was really my first opportunity to answer as the shaman. And then shortly after that, he was able to purge and this whole ceremony changed. So wow. It's a profound experience for him and I.
That's beautiful.
So that's the initiation story, basically. Yeah.
Whoa. So you're writing another book.
Yeah. So I wrote a book back in 2015. I had the cheapest editor. I didn't proofread it. It was a disaster. And I published it. I kind of pretended that it never happened. And it was called The Elements, which is interesting because the work I do now is based on the 5 elements, but I had no association back then. So it's like a synchronicity in the past. Mm-hmm. But I've written a book called A Simple Way to Understand God, which is on Amazon. And I wrote a book called The Rise of the Authentic Self, which is basically an audio book. And it's an autobiography about how I went through this magical journey, went through these magic initiations, started channeling a higher power, discovered that that higher power is actually God through the voice of Yeshua, which is the higher self. And so I was taught this ancient philosophy through these channeling sessions and through studying that I call the path. And it's basically a path to becoming our higher self, to unbecoming our lower self or our false identity. So I released that as an audiobook back in 2020, but I was still struggling with cannabis addiction. I was still going through codependency. I was in social isolation from COVID. I was in a much deeper, darker place at that time, even though I was doing amazing compared to my past, but still really struggling.
Yeah.
And so now I'm rewriting the book basically. So I'm writing it as a paperback book. So what I did then is I wrote it out, but 30 pages of loose leaf, like just an outline. And then I spoke it and recorded it just right from the heart. No editing, no like nitpicking editing. Just I wanted it to be as authentic as possible. But I'm rewriting it as a book now. It's going to be a different name, but the same philosophy basically.
That sounds really awesome. And it's called The Path. Yeah.
It's going to be called The Path of Love, actually. And there's another book called The Path of Love by Osho, but this will be different. So it's basically a 5-stage philosophy that can help us transform our false identity or our lower self and become our true, authentic, higher self.
Beautiful. If somebody wanted to learn to open to channel and open to the divine, what is something that you would suggest that they do?
I think the most important thing is to find a teacher, because I never even imagined what is possible until I saw it with my own eyes. When I saw shamans pull stuff out. I saw one shaman blow into a woman's crown chakra, and within a few hours, she had a black ball of gunk come out of her vagina.
Wow.
Like I've seen shamans suck things out of people's body and then vomit into a bucket. And I wondered, like, is it real? But like, there's nothing in their mouth. There's nothing in the bucket. And then they vomit black stuff after sucking it out of somebody's body. It's like, I think having a teacher is really important, or at least having someone you experience it from, because it's like, well, you've experienced shamanic ceremonies, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, there's an experience that you get from somebody that's been doing this work that's just, it's profound. And so I think that apprenticing under somebody, at least for a short period of time, would be my first encouragement. And in saying that, to recognize that that person is only a reflection of your consciousness. They're not above you. They're just able to offer a piece of the puzzle. I learned from a very powerful healer that it's very important that the path between me and my faith has no one else in between us.
Yes. Yes.
The distance between me and my faith is, there is no distance, which means that there is no medium needed other than my own humility. And so humility is important, which means that I don't know what I don't know, and I can learn from everyone. And it's very important that I don't ever put anyone else on a pedestal. So I think it's important to have teachers and guides, as long as we see them as equals, maybe people that are further ahead in a certain area than us. But that would be the thing I would suggest. Even if that means reading books or taking courses, that's great too. And working with somebody, I think one-on-one.
Yeah, I think working with someone directly would definitely be the way to go if that's an available resource to people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've worked with I've only started my plant medicine journey this year.
Okay.
So, and it's already been like, I mean, I've experienced like mushrooms and psilocybin, but that and acid, that's not plant medicine, it's a hallucinogenic. But yeah, this year I've done ayahuasca, sananga, and San Pedro.
Okay. How were those experiences for you?
They were amazing. So the first ayahuasca experience, now that I'm really feeling into it, there was probably a couple other elements besides just the ayahuasca, but I really came home to myself. I purged like intensely. Like it felt like I was purging like lifetimes of something. And I had this energetic dirt in my mouth for like an hour after that. And I knew that I just had to, deal with it. And so after the purging was over, I'm just sitting in the grass and I was just surrounded by this like beautiful, profound, high love that I've never felt before. And I just started weeping. But now it's just, now that I felt that, I want to become it. And it was really, really beautiful. And then the second ceremony, I drank the medicine and we were calling in the guides. It was Santa Dami, it was Brazilian. And I had a guide that, I'm familiar with, and then my grandfather, and then someone else showed up in front of me and they're like, this is not about you this time. So it was about one of my friend's daughter. So I was kind of like letting the medicine serve through me and energetically connecting with her. So that was really interesting. And the teaching that I got from that was of, being in service. It's not about what you can come to these ceremonies to necessarily get. It's how you can let the medicine serve through you, and how, basically that, and how you actually receive so much when you're not trying to get anything. Yeah. The San Pedro, I did that one time. I think I'm going to go on a vision quest in August and September and do like 4 days up on the mountain by myself. But it was really gentle at the ceremony. Like I'm expecting that the next time I do it, and in combination with the sweat lodges, taking away my word, probably ayahuasca, it will be more profound. But it was really gentle and heart opening. And the girl that I went with, I looked over, she brought another girl with her, and the girl that she brought with her was pregnant all of a sudden, like 9 months pregnant. So we didn't have water for like the whole time, like the whole like 13 hours. Then we were finally allowed to drink like sacred blessed water at the end. And then the ceremony like the circle broke, and we walked out to like the lake, and she looked at me and she's like, I was pregnant the whole time. I was like, I saw that. Oh. So she kept bringing it up, and and I felt into what it was, and I had to let her find that. She's like, what do you think it is? I'm like, I don't know, maybe you should journal about it. And then we're standing in a circle with like 4 girls, and she's like, I don't know, I just still feel pregnant. And I locked eyes with her, and I said, there's an attachment. What is it? And she fell to her knees and just started crying. And we like had a womb healing ceremony right there to kind of help heal a miscarriage that she had. Wow. It was so beautiful. And she was able to reclaim her own light. And it was just like, I felt like after that, I could have died and I would have served my purpose here on earth.
Must have been a profound experience for you.
It was beautiful. Yeah. So yeah, that's been my plant medicine journey. Now I'm journaling to Mother Ayahuasca, because I'm going to go sit with her, not next weekend, not this coming weekend, but the next weekend.
Wow. Yeah. That's going to be powerful too. What's your intention for this one?
I want to see into some past lives of let me think how to word this. I just wanted to see into my past lives and some connections in my past lives to kind of learn about how soul groups work a little bit, because I think it'll kind of inform the work that I do around sacred relationship. And I want to also ask what my next move is for moving, because I've realized that all this shit that I built externally, thinking that it was going to give me what I wanted, it's not fucking true at all. And I'm like in the middle of the suburbs, like, what am I doing here?
Right.
So yeah, now I'm surrendering into like whatever's next, and I kind of just want some guidance on that.
Yeah, I love that. There's a quote in the Bible that where Jesus apparently says, a prophet is not without honor except in his own country and his own home. So it basically means, like, my interpretation is that we can't really shine in a comfortable environment, like our comfortable home environment. We really have to be outside of our comfortable home environment to really figure out who we are. And that's from my journey. Like, this isn't my stuff. None of this stuff is mine. And I live in furnished places. I don't have to worry about any of that stuff.
Yeah. I just want to, now I know I can do it. Now I know, after being homeless and addicted to drugs, that I can build a beautiful home. So now I'm like, okay, cool. If I ever want to do that again, I know I can. But
that manifestation, you got that check mark. You can.
Yeah. Now I want to, like, I don't know. I'm like, do I want to move to St. Pete? Because I live in Tampa right now. I'm like, do I want to move to Costa Rica, or maybe an RV? have no idea.
Yeah, the world's your oyster.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool. I hope you get those insights.
Thank you. Me too. Me too. So if people want to work with you, how do they find you?
Yeah, basically my website doesn't have any information on it, but it will sign them up to my email list and they can respond to me by email. My clients are typically invite and referral only.
Okay.
I have a community called the Path of the Higher Self. The enrollment only opens a few times a year, but if they go to my website and sign up to my email list, it's just rickygoodall.com. And that they can sign up to my email list. It's free. I don't spam anything. I just send out quality content. That would be the best way to stay in touch with me. And social media, just Facebook. I've got a Facebook page. I've got a Facebook group. It's connected to my Facebook page. So if you just look up Ricky Goodall, you can find that Facebook page.
Okay.
And I have a
I'll
group.
add all of that in the show notes too.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I have a group called Higher Self Leadership. So it's like a little over 1,000 people do different videos and content in there. So
Yeah, I think I'm actually in that group.
yeah, you are. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, is there anything else that you want to share?
I just think that it's so important for us to have the courage to dream of the world that we really, really, really want. You know, a world where the only thing we have to figure out is like, oh, how can I enjoy even more of this? You know, there's no more problems to solve. There's no more back to complain about. There's no more there's no more problems to solve at all. There's nothing else to fix. So if we can just really have the courage to dream of that world, then if enough of us dream of it, then we'll create it.
Yeah. And I think that, there's some that are going to be on the forefront of the creation and the moving us into that, because there's some that still really don't even believe it's a possibility, or they look at it like it's some kind of like spiritual bypass, or like you're crazy for even like wanting to conceptualize such a thing.
Yeah.
So for some of us, there's a real long way to go. So I think that there's blueprint holders, if you will.
Yeah. And I think that those people are just reflections of the doubt that still exists inside of me. So if I just heal the doubt, if I just heal the doubt of myself, then I'll see that I'm surrounded by people who have the same vision.
That's beautiful.
So whenever I come across somebody and it happens, whenever I come across somebody that doesn't have the same vision, I'm starting to be able to see it as, okay, there's another part of myself that hasn't figured it out yet. So I wonder what's the work that I need to do to help this person wake up, rather than what's the work that they need to do to help them wake up, because it's all a reflection.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. This was an amazing conversation.
Thank you, Lauren.